Captain Taman stared at the massive alien ship through the view screen of his small exploration vessel. The ship was 10 times bigger than his horizon's edge. Its dark metal surface was covered with strange lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. He had never seen anything like it. "Captain, they're sending us a message," said his communications officer, Bora. Her voice was shaking. "It's not in any language we know, but the computer is trying to translate it." Taman nodded. He had been exploring space for 15 years, but this was the first time he had met aliens. Earth had sent him to look for new planets that humans could live on. He never expected to find other intelligent life. The translation came through the speakers. The voice was cold and machine-like. "Small vessel, you will stop your engines. You will prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in destruction." Bora looked at her captain with wide eyes. "What do we do, sir?" Taman thought for a moment. His ship had no weapons. The alien ship could destroy them easily. But he was curious. These aliens could talk to them. They had technology that could translate languages instantly. This was the most important moment in human history. "Send them a message," he said calmly. "Tell them we will cooperate." Minutes later, the alien ship pulled the horizon's edge into its massive cargo bay. Taman watched as the bay doors closed behind them. Strange machines moved around their ship, scanning it with beams of blue light. "Sir, they're coming aboard," Bora whispered. The airlock door opened with a hiss. 3 tall figures walked into the ship. They were humanoid but much taller than humans, about 8 feet high. Their skin was gray and seemed to shimmer in the light. They wore dark armor that looked like it was made from the same material as their ship. Their faces were narrow with large black eyes that seemed to see everything. The leader stepped forward. When he spoke, a small device on his chest translated his words into English. "I am Commander Velthar of the Velthran Empire. You are now prisoners of the Galactic Council. Your primitive vessel will be studied and you will be questioned." Taman stood up slowly. He was not afraid, just very interested. "I'm Captain Taman of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We come in peace. We're explorers, not warriors." Velthar tilted his head. Most alien species they met would be shaking with fear by now. But this human seemed calm, almost curious. "Earth?" Velthar said. "We have no record of this world. How did your species develop space travel? Your technology appears very basic." "We're good at solving problems," Taman replied. "We built our first rockets about 100 years ago. We've been exploring our solar system for decades. This is our first trip to another star system," one of the other Velthrans whispered. Something to Velthar. The commander's eyes grew wider. "You traveled between star systems with this primitive ship?" Velthar asked. "The journey would take many years." 43 years, Taman said. "I've been in sleep freeze for most of it. My ship's computers woke me up when we detected your vessel." Velthar was silent for a moment. Most species joined the Galactic Council only after they were contacted by more advanced civilizations. Very few developed interstellar travel on their own. And none had ever been crazy enough to make such a long journey in such a basic ship. "You will come with us," Velthar decided. "The Council will want to study your species." Taman nodded. "Can my crew come too? They're also explorers. They would find your technology very interesting. Your crew will remain here as prisoners. Only you will come." Bora started to protest, but Taman held up his hand. "It's okay, Bora. Take care of the ship, I'll be back." As they walked through the corridors of the alien ship, Taman looked at everything with great interest. The walls seemed to be made of living metal that flowed like water. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared on the surfaces. The air smelled different, like ozone after a thunderstorm. "Your ship is very advanced," Taman said to Velthar. "How does the metal move like that?" Velthar was surprised by the question. Most prisoners were too scared to ask about technology. "It is biomechanical engineering. The ship's systems are partially alive. They can repair themselves and adapt to different situations." "Fascinating," Taman said. "We've been trying to develop self-repairing materials for years. How do you prevent the biological components from conflicting with the mechanical ones?" Velthar stopped walking. This human was asking very specific, intelligent questions. Questions that showed he understood advanced engineering principles. "You understand biomechanical systems?" Velthar asked. "A little. I'm an engineer as well as a pilot. I helped design my ship's systems. We had to make everything as simple and reliable as possible for such a long journey." They reached a large room filled with control panels and view screens. Other Vilthrons were working at the stations. When they saw the human, they all stopped and stared. "This is our command center," Velthar said. "From here, we control our entire fleet." Taman looked around with obvious interest. He noticed that many of the control systems seemed to respond to thoughts rather than touch. The Velthrons would look at a panel and it would change. "Telepathic controls?" he asked. Velthar was becoming more and more surprised by this human. "Yes, all Velthrons have telepathic abilities. It makes operating our technology much more efficient. That would explain why your ships are so advanced," Taman said. "If you can interface directly with your computers, you don't need physical controls. Very clever." One of the other Velthrons approached Velthar and spoke in their own language. Taman couldn't understand the words, but he could tell they were talking about him. Velthar turned back to the human. "My officer suggests we test your mental defenses. All inferior species have weak minds that we can easily read and control." "Go ahead," Taman said calmly. Velthar focused his mind on the human. He tried to push into Taman's thoughts, to rid his memories and fears. It was something he had done thousands of times with other species. It usually caused them great pain and terror. Nothing happened. Velthar tried harder, concentrating all his mental power on breaking through the humans' mental barriers. Still nothing. It was like trying to push through a solid wall. The other Velthrons joined in, focusing their combined telepathic abilities on Taman. The human just stood there, looking mildly interested in their efforts. "Are you finished?" Taman asked after a few minutes. Velthar stepped back, breathing heavily. In his entire career, he had never encountered a mind he couldn't penetrate. Even the most advanced species had some mental weaknesses they could exploit. "How?" he asked. "How are you blocking us?" Taman shrugged. "I'm not doing anything special. Maybe humans are just naturally resistant to telepathy. We've never had to deal with it before." This was not going as Velthar had planned. This human was supposed to be terrified, begging for mercy. Instead, he was asking questions about their technology and showing no fear at all. "Do not think your mental resistance will save your species," Velthar said, trying to regain control of the situation. "We have weapons that can destroy your entire world. Your Earth will surrender or be eliminated." Taman looked at him with those calm, curious eyes. "You're welcome to try," he said quietly. "But first, let me tell you about human history. I think you'll find it very educational." Velthar felt something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. This human was not reacting like any prisoner he had ever taken. There was something about him, something in his voice and manner, that suggested the Velthrons might have made a serious mistake. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Velthar wondered if they had captured the wrong species. 3 days later, Taman stood in the largest room he had ever seen. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, with seats rising up in circles like a giant stadium. Hundreds of different alien species sat watching him. Some looked like insects, with multiple arms. Others were made of crystal that sparkled in the light. A few looked almost human, but with strange colors of skin or extra eyes. At the center of the room was a raised platform where Taman stood. Around him were floating screens that could show images to everyone in the chamber. The whole place felt very old and important, like a courthouse where the most serious decisions were made. Commander Velthar stood beside the platform. "Members of the Galactic Council," he announced, "this creature claims to represent a species called humans from a world called Earth. They have developed primitive space travel without our guidance." Murmurs and strange sounds came from the audience. Many of the aliens seemed amused. Some were making noises that sounded like laughter. A tall, thin alien with blue skin stood up. "I am Counselor Haywan of the Zephyrian Federation. Why should we care about another backward species?" We encounter dozens of primitive worlds every cycle. This one is different, Veltar replied. Their minds cannot be read or controlled by telepathy. They show no fear when threatened. The council must decide what to do with them. An alien that looked like it was made of living crystal rose from its seat. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. I am Counselor Zeftos of the crystalline hegemony. Let the humans speak. We will judge if this species is worth our attention, or if they should be eliminated. Taman stepped forward. He had been thinking about this moment for 3 days. These aliens controlled thousands of worlds and trillions of beings. They expected him to beg for mercy or try to convince them that humans were peaceful and harmless. He had decided to tell them the truth instead. Thank you for letting me speak, Taman began. You want to know about humanity? Let me show you who we really are. He touched a control panel and the floating screens came to life. Images appeared showing Earth from space, then scenes of human cities, forests, and oceans. This is our world, he said. One planet, about 12,000 years of recorded history. For most of that time we fought each other. The first images showed ancient armies with swords and shields battling across fields. Then came pictures of castles under siege, ships with cannons firing at each other, and soldiers with muskets marching in lines. Some of the aliens laughed. Counselor Haywan spoke up. Primitive warfare. We have seen this on every developing world. Nothing special. You're right, Taman agreed. That was primitive. But we got better at it. The images changed. Now they showed the trenches of World War I, with millions of soldiers facing each other across a wasteland of mud and barbed wire. Explosions from artillery shells lit up the sky. Bodies lay scattered across battlefields that stretched for hundreds of miles. The laughter stopped. This was 100 years ago, Taman explained. We call it the Great War. 20 million humans died in 4 years. We used poison gas, machine guns, and explosives on a scale never seen before. When it ended, we said it was the war to end all wars. He paused and looked around the chamber. The aliens were paying attention now. We were wrong. The screens showed World War II, massive battles with thousands of tanks, cities burning from bombing raids, ships sinking in the ocean, the mushroom clouds of atomic bombs rising over Japanese cities. 21 years later, we had an even bigger war. Taman continued. This time, 75 million humans died. We invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We built factories designed only to kill people. We fought on every continent and in every ocean. Counselor Zeftos leaned forward in his crystal seat. Your species sounds like violent primitives. Why would we not simply eliminate you? Because that's not the end of the story. Taman replied. The images changed again. Now they showed the Cold War. Nuclear missiles that could destroy the world. Submarines hiding beneath the ice. Spy satellites watching from space. After the big war ended, we split into 2 groups that hated each other. Taman explained. For 40 years, we pointed enough nuclear weapons at each other to kill every living thing on our planet several times over, and we kept building more. An insect-like alien with 4 arms clicked its mandibles nervously. They built enough weapons to destroy their own world? Many times over, Taman confirmed. But here's what you need to understand about humans. We did all of this while we were trapped on one planet. We couldn't leave Earth. We couldn't spread out across the galaxy. All that violence and all those weapons were used by humans against other humans. He let that sink in for a moment, and we survived it. The screens now showed modern warfare, smart bombs, stealth aircraft, cyber attacks, and special forces operations. We're still fighting wars, Taman said. But we've learned to be much more efficient about it. We can strike targets on the other side of our planet with perfect accuracy. We can shut down entire countries by attacking their computer networks. We can make weapons that think for themselves and choose their own targets. The chamber was completely quiet now. But that's just the wars, Taman continued. Let me show you what we do for fun. The images changed to show human athletes and explorers. Marathon runners crossing deserts, mountain climbers on the highest peaks, deep-sea divers exploring ocean trenches, Arctic explorers walking across frozen wastelands. We run for hours, without stopping just to see if we can, Taemin explained. We climb mountains that can kill us just to reach the top. We dive to the bottom of the deepest oceans and explore places where the pressure would crush most living things. We walk across frozen continents where the temperature can freeze flesh in minutes. An alien that looked like a giant sea creature raised a tentacle. Why do they do these dangerous things? Because they're there, Taemin answered simply. Because someone said it was impossible. Because we get bored if we're not pushing ourselves to the limit. He touched the controls again. The screen showed persistence hunting. Humans running after animals for hours and hours until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. This is how our ancestors hunted, he said. We're not the fastest or strongest species on our planet, but we never stop. We can run all day and all night. Our prey would run until their hearts burst and we would still be coming after them. The silence in the chamber was complete now. Even the aliens who had been making noise before were perfectly still. We are persistence predators, Taemin said quietly. We don't give up. We don't stop. We adapt to any environment, survive any disaster, and learn from every defeat. When someone tells us something is impossible, we see it as a challenge. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many aliens as he could. You rule thousands of worlds. You have technology we can barely understand. Your fleets could destroy our planet in minutes. He smiled, the same calm smile that had unsettled Velthar. But you made one mistake when you captured me. What mistake? Counselor Zeftos asked, his crystal voice barely a whisper. You showed us that we're not alone in the universe, Taemin replied. You showed us there are new challenges out here, new impossibilities to overcome. You've given us something new to hunt. He gestured to the screens, which now showed images of human space missions, rockets launching, space stations orbiting Earth, rovers exploring other planets. We've been preparing for this day for 60 years. We've been dreaming of the stars since we first looked up at the night sky. We've been building ships and training crews and developing technology, all for the chance to meet you. Taemin's voice grew stronger. And now that we know you're here, we're coming. We're coming to your worlds, to your systems, to your empire. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as the one thing you've never encountered before. What is that? Velthar demanded. Equals, Taemin said simply. We're coming as your equals. And we're very good at making friends. The chamber erupted in chaos as hundreds of aliens began talking at once. The Galactic Council meeting ended in chaos. For 3 hours, hundreds of alien species argued about what to do with humanity. Some wanted to destroy Earth immediately, others wanted to study humans first. A few suggested trying to make peace. In the end, the warlike voices won. Counselor Zeftos stood up, his crystal body flashing with angry light. This human speaks of his species like they are warriors. They are primitives with delusions of strength. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who threaten the Council's authority. The vote was not even close. 400 species voted to attack Earth. Only 12 voted against it. Commander Velthar received his orders that same day. He would lead the largest war fleet in Velthran history to Earth. 200 ships, each one powerful enough to destroy a city. The fleet had never lost a battle. No enemy had ever survived fighting them. Make it quick, Counselor Haywan told him. We want other species to see the recordings. Let them know what happens to those who defy the Council. Velthar nodded. It will be over in hours, Counselor. Their primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. But as his fleet prepared to leave, Velthar kept thinking about the human captain. Taemin had not begged for mercy. He had not tried to convince them that humans were peaceful. Instead, he had told them that humans were coming to the stars, as equals. There was something about the way he said it that bothered Velthar. The human had sounded so certain, so confident, like he knew something the Council did not. What the Council did not know was that Taemin's capture had been planned from the beginning. 43 years earlier, when the Horizon's Edge left Earth, it carried more than just exploration equipment. Hidden in Timon's body were microscopic devices that could send messages instantly across any distance using quantum entanglement. The devices were so small that even advanced alien scanners could not detect them. For 3 days, while Timon was a prisoner on the Valthran ship, the devices recorded everything. Every conversation, every piece of technology, every weakness in the alien systems. All of it was transmitted back to Earth in real time. Earth's governments had been preparing for this moment since they sent Timon into space. Secret military programs had been running for decades. Underground factories had been built. The best scientists and engineers from every country worked together on projects that officially did not exist. Dr. Bora, one of Earth's top engineers, had been waiting for this day. She stood in a hidden laboratory beneath the mountains of Korea, watching the data stream in from Timon's devices. "We have their shield frequencies," she announced to her team. "Their weapon systems use a predictable power cycle. Their ships are fast, but they turn slowly because of their size." General Mi Young, commander of Earth's new Space Defense Force, studied the information. "How long do we have?" "Their fleet moves at about twice the speed of light," Bora calculated. "From their position to Earth, 6 days. 6 days to save our world," Mi Young said. "Get me every military leader on the planet. It's time to show these aliens what humans can really do." The next 6 days changed Earth forever. In orbital shipyards that had been hidden from telescopes, construction crews worked around the clock. Ships that looked primitive on the outside revealed advanced weapon systems based on stolen alien technology. Nuclear missiles were fitted with guidance systems that could penetrate Valthran shields. Commander Jun Ho led the pilot training program. "Remember," he told his squadron, "their ships are bigger and more powerful, but they expect us to fight like civilized beings. We don't fight civilized, we fight to win." The pilots trained in tactics that would horrify the aliens: ramming attacks, suicide runs, fighting in formations that made no sense to anyone who followed galactic military rules. Engineer Dongmin worked on special weapons. "They've never faced nuclear weapons before," he explained to his team. "Their shields are designed to stop energy beams and solid projectiles. They're not ready for weapons that explode with the power of stars." On the moon, massive construction robots were building something that had never been seen before. The entire moon was being turned into a weapon. Huge magnetic coils were installed in underground tunnels. The moon's core was being converted into the largest railgun ever built. Strategist Hae Jin coordinated everything from a command center buried deep under a mountain. "They expect us to fight like every other species they've conquered," she said. "Line up our ships, exchange fire, surrender when we start losing. We're going to do the opposite of everything they expect." Around the world, ordinary people were being trained for war. Factory workers learned to build weapons. Farmers learned to operate anti-aircraft guns. Children learned to hide in underground shelters that could survive orbital bombardment. But the most important preparation was happening in Earth's computer networks. Programmer So Young had studied the alien data transmissions. "Their ships are controlled by artificial intelligence," she discovered. "The AI systems are very advanced, but they follow strict rules. If we can confuse their logic systems, we can turn their own ships against them." Meanwhile, the Valthran fleet was traveling toward Earth, confident in their coming victory. Admiral Kethvar, Velthar's superior, had added his own ships to the attack force. He wanted to personally oversee the destruction of this troublesome species. "How long since we fought a real war?" he asked Velthar as they watched the stars go by. "Over 200 years, Velthar replied. "The last species to resist us was the Andromedans. They lasted 3 days, and they were much more advanced than these humans," Kethavar said. "This will be good practice for our crews." On the 6th day, the Valthran fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. They expected to find a single planet with primitive defenses, maybe a few orbital stations with basic weapons. Instead, they found a fortress. The outer planets had been turned into weapon platforms. Jupiter was surrounded by thousands of missile launchers that used the planet's gravity to accelerate their projectiles to incredible speeds. Saturn's rings were filled with hidden bases that could launch surprise attacks. As the fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they encountered the first human ships. The vessels looked crude and primitive, barely holding together. The Vilthrans almost laughed at the sight. Then the human ships opened fire. The weapons were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Instead of clean energy beams, they fired. Chunks of metal accelerated to near light speed. Instead of elegant plasma missiles, they used crude nuclear bombs that exploded with devastating power. 3 Vilthran ships were destroyed in the first attack. Their shields, designed to deflect sophisticated energy weapons, were torn apart by simple kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" Kethvar demanded. "Their weapons are primitive," his tactical officer replied, "but they're using them in ways we've never seen. They're not following any recognized combat doctrine." As the fleet approached Earth, more surprises waited. The moon suddenly revealed its true nature. Massive doors opened across its surface and the entire satellite began to glow with electromagnetic energy. "What is that?" Velthar asked. His science officer's voice was filled with disbelief. "Sir, they've turned their moon into a weapon. It's a railgun the size of a small planet." The moon fired. A projectile the size of a building, accelerated by magnetic fields that stretched across the lunar surface, streaked toward the Vilthran fleet at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile hit Admiral Kethvar's flagship dead center. The massive ship, which had survived hundreds of battles, was split in half by a simple piece of metal moving very fast. But the real shock came when the Vilthran fleet tried to contact Earth to demand surrender. Instead of a frightened planetary government begging for mercy, they received a message from General Mi Young. She appeared on their screens wearing a military uniform that looked both primitive and somehow threatening. Behind her, human soldiers moved with efficient purpose, preparing weapons and checking equipment. "This is General Mi Young of the Earth Defense Force," she said calmly. "You have entered our solar system with hostile intent. You have fired on our ships and threatened our world. We have one response to that." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the same quiet confidence that Tai Min had shown. "Molen Labe, come and take it." The transmission ended. The Vilthran fleet found itself facing an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare, an enemy that had spent decades preparing for this exact moment, an enemy that had turned their entire solar system into a trap. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Vilthran Empire was about to face a real war, and they were completely unprepared for what humanity would do to win it. The Battle of Earth lasted 3 days and changed the galaxy forever. Commander Velthar watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by an enemy that refused to fight properly. Human ships attacked in ways that made no sense according to military textbooks. They used tactics that were supposed to be impossible. Pilot So Young was the first to try the kamikaze run. Her small fighter was damaged and losing power. Instead of retreating, she aimed her ship directly at a Vilthran cruiser's hangar bay. "Control, this is Lightning 1, she said over the radio. "My ship is finished, but I can take one of theirs with me." "Negative, Lightning 1. Return to base for repairs." "Sorry, Control. I see a better option." So Young ejected from her cockpit just before her fighter crashed into the enemy hangar. The explosion destroyed 50 Vilthran fighters and crippled the cruiser. The alien crew could not understand why a pilot would sacrifice her ship when she could have escaped. "They're insane," Velthar's tactical officer reported. "They're destroying their own ships to damage ours." But the human tactics were not insane. They were carefully planned chaos. Engineer Dongmin had designed special missiles that looked like harmless debris. The Vilthran ships ignored them because their sensors said they were just pieces of destroyed human vessels floating in space. When the debris got close enough, it exploded with nuclear fire. "Sir, we've lost 12 ships to what appeared to be wreckage," the tactical officer reported. "How is that possible? The humans are putting nuclear bombs inside fake debris. Our ships don't scan wreckage for weapons." Velthar felt a chill. These humans were not just fighting a war. They were thinking like hunters, setting traps and using deception in ways that violated every rule of honorable combat. The worst part was that it was working. Captain Wu Jin led a group of human ships in hit-and-run attacks throughout the solar system. They would appear suddenly, fire everything they had, then disappear before the Velthrons could respond. "We can't catch them," Velthar's navigation officer complained. "Their ships are slower than ours, but they know this system perfectly. They're using asteroids and planets to hide, then attacking from unexpected angles." The human ships were not faster or stronger, but they fought like they had nothing to lose. When a human ship was about to be destroyed, it would ram the nearest enemy vessel. When human crews were trapped, they would set off their own power cores rather than surrender. Commander Yuna led the most feared human squadron. Her ships were painted black and had skulls painted on their sides. They specialized in boarding actions that terrified the Velthran crews. "They don't just destroy our ships," one Velthran captain reported. "They take them over. They're boarding. Parties fight like wild animals. They use primitive weapons like explosive charges and metal knives, but they're incredibly effective in close combat." Yuna's teams had learned to fight in the narrow corridors of spaceships. They used the Velthrons' size against them. The tall aliens could not move quickly in tight spaces, but humans were smaller and more agile. After capturing a ship, the human teams would turn its weapons against the rest of the Velthran fleet. Soon, the aliens were being attacked by their own vessels controlled by human crews who had learned to operate alien technology. But the real surprise came on the second day of battle. The humans had not just prepared Earth's defenses. They had been building a secret fleet of their own ships using stolen Velthran technology. These ships looked human on the outside, but had alien weapons and shields. General Mi Young appeared on the Velthran communication channels again. This time, she was standing on the bridge of a massive human battleship that was larger than anything the aliens thought humans could build. "Commander Velthar," she said, "I have a message from Captain Taemin. He says thank you for the technology lessons. We've put them to good use." Behind her, the bridge was filled with human officers operating equipment that looked like a mixture of human and Velthran technology. The ship itself was broadcasting on frequencies that should have been impossible for humans to use. "How?" Velthar whispered. "We're very good at learning from our enemies," Mi Young replied. "Every scan you made of our ships, every weapon you fired at us, every piece of technology you used near our captain, we recorded it all and figured out how it worked." The human fleet that emerged from hiding was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were built for war in ways that horrified the Velthrans. They had no elegant curves or artistic designs. They were ugly, brutal machines designed only to destroy enemies and survive damage, and they were everywhere. Human ships appeared throughout the galaxy, not just at Earth. Strike teams hit Velthran supply bases. Raiding parties attacked communication stations. Human forces struck at targets that were supposed to be secret and impossible to find. "How are they reaching our other systems so quickly?" Admiral Kethvar's replacement demanded. "They just learned space travel. They can't have faster than light communication." The answer came from programmers so young who had been working on the alien computer systems. "Actually, we do," she broadcast to the entire Velthran fleet. "We've been using your quantum communication network for weeks. Every message you send, we intercept. Every order you give, we hear. Every secret you think you have, we know." The Velthran Empire was fighting an enemy that could hear their every word and predict their every move. Worse, the humans were using the Empire's own technology and tactics against them, but in ways that no civilized species would consider. Human forces didn't just attack military targets. They went after infrastructure. They destroyed the computer networks that controlled trade routes. They attacked the space stations that processed food for Velthran colonies. They targeted the automated systems that kept entire planets running. "They're not trying to conquer us," Velthar realized. "They're trying to collapse our entire civilization." It was true. Human strategists had studied the Velthran Empire and found its weakness. It was too big and too dependent on technology. The Empire controlled thousands of worlds, but it needed constant communication and supply shipments to function. The humans cut those connections systematically. Within weeks, Valthran colonies were running out of food. Planets that had forgotten how to grow their own crops were facing starvation. Worlds that depended on imported technology found their machines breaking down with no way to repair them. And everywhere the Valthrans looked, human ships were watching, waiting, striking at exactly the wrong moment. The war that was supposed to last a few hours had become a nightmare that the Valthran Empire could not wake up from. They were fighting an enemy that used their own technology against them, that refused to follow any rules, and that seemed to appear everywhere at once. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Valthran Empire was losing a war, and the humans were just getting started. 2 years after the first shot was fired at Earth, the war ended not with a great battle, but with a simple message broadcast across the galaxy. This is Captain Taimin of Earth, speaking to all species in the galaxy. The Valthran Empire has surrendered. The Galactic Council has been dissolved. All beings are now free. The message was heard on thousands of worlds where alien species had lived under Council rule for centuries. On some planets, there was celebration. On others, there was fear. Many species did not know how to live without someone telling them what to do. The Valthran Empire had not been destroyed. It had simply collapsed from within. Without their advanced technology working properly, without communication between their worlds, without the ability to move supplies and troops, the Empire had fallen apart like a machine with all its parts, scattered. Commander Velthar sat in a small room on a human space station, waiting to sign the surrender documents. He looked very different from the proud warrior who had first captured Taimin. His armor was gone, replaced by simple clothes. His ship was destroyed, his crew scattered across the galaxy. "I don't understand," he said to Taimin, who sat across from him at a simple metal table. "How did you know? When we first met, how did you know this would happen?" Taimin thought about the question. Around them, the space station buzzed with activity. Humans and aliens worked together, rebuilding communication networks and organizing supply shipments to worlds that had been cut off during the war. "I didn't know exactly how it would happen," Taimin replied honestly. "But I knew it would happen, somehow." "How could you be so certain?" "Because of what you represented," Taimin explained. "You were an empire that controlled people through fear and superior technology. You had been winning for so long that you forgot how to deal with real resistance." He leaned forward. "But more than that, you made the same mistake that every empire in human history has made. You assumed that everyone wanted to be ruled by someone else. You never considered that some species might prefer freedom, even if freedom was dangerous." Through the window, they could see ships from dozens of different species arriving at the station. Former council worlds were sending representatives to discuss what would come next. "What happens now?" Velthar asked. "Now we build something better," Taimin said. The new government was called the Terran Commonwealth, but it was not controlled by humans. Representatives from 47 different species met in a great assembly hall built in orbit around Earth. The hall was designed so that every species could attend comfortably, with different areas for beings who breathed different gases or needed different temperatures. The Commonwealth Charter was based on ideas that humans had been developing for centuries: individual rights, democratic government, and the belief that all intelligent beings deserved freedom and respect. Not every species joined immediately. Some were afraid, others preferred to remain isolated. But many of the worlds that had been oppressed by the Council signed the Charter eagerly. Former Councilor Zeftos was one of the first to join. His crystalline hegemony had switched sides early in the war when they realized that humans were going to win. He approached Taimin after the first Commonwealth Assembly meeting. "I must ask you something that has been bothering me for 2 years, the crystal being said. "What's that?" "When you first spoke to our council, when you told us about human history and said you were coming to the stars, did you plan all of this? Did you know the war would happen?" Taimin walked to a large window that looked out at space. Hundreds of ships from different species were docked at the station. Humans and aliens worked together on construction projects, scientific research, and trade agreements. "Planet?" "No," he said finally. "But I knew it was possible. You see, Counselor, you made one crucial mistake in your thinking about humanity. Which was? You thought we were like every other species you had encountered. You thought we would be impressed by your power and accept your rule. Taemin smiled, the same calm smile that had started everything. But humans have spent our entire history fighting against anyone who tried to rule us without our permission. He pointed to the scene outside the window. We have a saying on Earth, give me liberty or give me death. We really mean it. We would rather die fighting for freedom than live safely as slaves. Zephtos' crystal body flickered with different colors as he processed this. So you knew we would try to conquer you? I hoped you would be wiser than that, Taemin replied. But yes, I expected you might try. And I knew that if you did, you would lose. How could you be so confident? Taemin turned from the window to face the alien counselor. Because empires always lose in the end. They get too big, too comfortable, too sure of their own power. They forget that the people they rule are not objects to be controlled, but living beings with their own hopes and dreams. He gestured toward the Commonwealth Assembly Hall, where representatives from dozens of species were working together to write laws that would protect everyone's rights. But freedom is different. Freedom grows stronger when it's shared. Every species that joins the Commonwealth makes all of us more free, not less. In the months that followed, the Commonwealth grew rapidly. Former Council worlds discovered that they could trade freely, explore space without permission, and govern themselves according to their own values and traditions. Human ships explored new regions of the galaxy, but they were not conquest fleets. They were science vessels, trade missions, and diplomatic expeditions. When they found new species, they offered friendship and partnership, not submission. The galaxy had been transformed, where once there had been an empire that ruled through fear. Now there was a community of equals working together. Where once there had been a rigid hierarchy with the council at the top, now there were thousands of independent worlds cooperating because they chose to. Captain Taemin stood on the bridge of his new ship, the New Horizon. It was much larger than his old exploration vessel, and it carried a crew of humans and aliens working together. They were heading toward a distant star system where radio signals suggested the presence of another intelligent species. Captain, said his communications officer, an alien with 6 arms and blue skin. We're receiving signals from the target system. It looks like they're trying to communicate. Taemin nodded. Send them a message. Tell them we come in peace. That we're explorers from the Terran Commonwealth and that we'd like to meet them. And if they're hostile, sir? Taemin thought about all the changes that had happened since he first met the Velthrons. The galaxy was a very different place. Now, there was still conflict, still problems to solve, still challenges to face, but there was also hope, freedom, and the knowledge that no one had to face those challenges alone. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, he said. But let's assume they're reasonable beings who want the same things we do. To explore, to learn, and to live their lives in peace. The New Horizon continued toward the unknown star system. Behind them, the Commonwealth grew stronger every day, adding new members who chose freedom over security, cooperation over domination. The age of empires was over. The age of partnership had begun. And humanity, the species that no one could handle, had given the galaxy something it had never had before, a chance for everyone to be free.